Intro.
Hello, and welcome to the Friday edition of Poor Mana's Magic. Today we're going to be taking a look at a few different uncommon and common decks that we might be able to take into next week as we continue our climb up through the ladder. We just got into Platinum 4, which is a really nice place to start experimenting, and the meta definitely shifts. Normally between Gold and Platinum, there's a slight uptick in the quality of player, which means that you have to be a little bit more intentional about what cards you're setting yourself up with, and misplays tend to cost you even more. Now, I've taken a few of these into the ranked queue, and while none of them, to be expected, have been dominant, a few of them have shown some promise. So when, again, you're trying to build a deck around commons and uncommons, maybe you don't have access to the rares that some of the other meta decks have, you really need to lean into synergies, and these can either be tribal synergies or keyword synergies. And we have some examples of both here. So the first one we'll kind of take a look at are the tribal synergies, and for that we have humans, which got a big boost in Copper Coat Vanguard. So this is a 2 mana that's going to give other humans you control +1, +0, and ward 1. Now we're seeing this in a lot of the soldier decks, a lot of the human decks, and a lot of the mono white knight decks that are popping up. A very effective card, but easy enough to remove if you don't have enough creatures on board to take advantage of it. So we'll come back to this in a second, but the other card I wanted to point out was a vampire called Markov Baron. Now this is also going to be a +1/+1 giver, and it's for 3 mana and Convoke, which means that on turn 2, if you play a couple smaller 1/1s like Ichor Drinker or Voldaren Epicure, you can get one of these out on turn 1, and then turn 2, play another turn 1 and a Markov Baron. That's 3 creatures, potentially 6 power on the board on turn 2. That's not too bad, especially for an aggro deck. The issue with Markov Baron is that it dies to every single kind of removal, and aside from giving other vampires +1/+1, it doesn't have a lot of board presence. In testing these, I found they weren't as effective, these tribal decks. Humans was a little bit better than vampires, so if you wanted to go one direction, I would definitely go the humans. But the ones I've had the most success with have been those that kind of closely mirror some of the effective meta decks. So for this, we're looking at blue, either in Poor Mana's blue and blue and Connive. And this really takes advantage of the power of Luminator Virtuoso. It does include Delver of Secrets, which is a fairly contentious card, and mono blue players don't know which way to go on this. And then it also takes advantage of a couple other interesting little dynamics, like Gaslight Snare, which costs 3 mana on its face, but gets a discount, 1 mana less for every spirit, and 1 mana less for an enchantment. This was pretty effective. I was able to string together 2 and 3 games before I would lose 1 or 2, and it tended to hover right around that 50% win rate that we needed in order to climb the ladder. I also ran up against a Tatyova deck in the queue, and I thought that this was very interesting. So Tatyova, Steward of the Tides, is a 2 green, 1 blue mana cost legendary creature that essentially gives your lands flying and haste. And this only happens if you have 7 or more lands, which is not hard to do in this meta. Even with commons and uncommons, we have a lot of kind of mana ramp. We can play spells like Azusa's Many Journeys. We have the new Battle Siege, Invasion of Zendikar, that once you get to 4 mana, gets you 2 more mana, and then all you need is, a turn 5 mana, and all of a sudden, you have some flying lands. There are some other ways to build around this. I haven't quite found the right combination, but I have a feeling that Sultai, including maybe a little bit more removal, and also Render Inert, which removes counters from some of your permanents, like Invasion of Zendikar, like Invasion of Pyrulia, including more black and more removal might be the way to go here. But for now, the deck that I want to focus on is Domain. So if we go ahead and search for the Domain, we'd like to focus in on Nishoba Brawler. So Nishoba Brawler is a 2 mana spell with 3 toughness, trample, and domain, where the power of the brawler is equal to the number of basic land types you control. So at its best, this can be a 5/3 for 2 mana. It can come down on turn 2, oftentimes for 3 power, deals 3 damage that turn, you put down another tap land to get it up to 4 power or 5 power, and all of a sudden you have a threat that needs to be answered because your opponent is on a clock. You also have some very interesting pump spells like Gaia's Might. And so if attached to a flyer or a prowess trampler or even your Neshoba Brawler, a Gaia's Might can pull a win out of nowhere. Now, Kenra's Spellspear is something you don't normally see in a domain deck. It's not something you see really outside of kind of a mono red or a kind of Is It Spells low to the ground deck. But in this particular deck, it has been insane. If you flip it on turn 3, you get Trample, Ward 2, and double Prowess. That means that for every one of our 1-mana pump spells, either Ancestral Anger or Gaia's Might, or even a slight removal spell like Seismic Wave, it gets your Kenra Spellspear is going to get +2, so essentially attacking for a 5/5 by turn 4 with Ward 2. Now that's insanely good. If you can flip it and it survives through turn 3, your opponent is going to have a very, very difficult time removing it if they don't have a sacrifice effect. We'll take a look at the deck after the gameplay. We might make some adjustments, but for now, sit back and enjoy. Looks like we have all red cards and no red mana. This is a little bit better. We have a Phoenix Chick in a turn 1 play. We'll probably drop the Shadow Prophecy here. Well, on second thought, I think maybe because Shadow Prophecy is our 3-mana play, Okiba Reckoner Raid is really something you want to get off the ground by turn 1. And so I think that's going to be our hold for now. We'll go ahead, play our Phoenix Chick, and pass. Neshoba Brawler, not too shabby. So we have a tap land right now. We know that we're going to have a Gaia's Might next turn. Let's go ahead and Ancestral Anger, see what we draw off the top. Ooh, even better. We'll go ahead and attack with Phoenix Chick. We'll play the land that gives us the most domain, and we'll pass. Ambitious Farmhand in Esper colors from opponent. I love these new Capenna lands. They are so pretty. Double Neshoba Brawler. So this makes me feel very good about putting one down this turn. We are up to 1, 2, 3 for the power. So if we draw into a white-blue mana source, our opponent's going to be in trouble. We'll go ahead and play the Brawler. We'll attack with the Phoenix Chick. And we'll see what happens. Opponent taking a look at our Brawler and probably a little confused. Another white source into a Wedding Announcement. Now this is why I love Evasion. We have the ability to tramp over anything that our opponent could put down. We also have the ability to fly over everything that our opponent could put down. So we have a 4th land here. We have a Shadow Prophecy. I think it might be a good time to cash this in case we come up with another kind of land type. So choose up to 2. Seismic Wave is going to be absolutely devastating for opponent, and I think we're probably going to want to keep pulling lands. So we'll go ahead, we'll play a forest, we'll go ahead and attack, see what opponent wants to do here. They don't do anything. So let's go ahead, capitalize on that by getting in some more damage. So Wedding Announcement this turn is going to flip to 2. That's going to give them likely 1 more token. And if they don't have another play, this is going to be bad news for them. So let's play our land. They are holding up 4 mana. We know that they're on a token build, which means that they likely have a Wandering Emperor. That's going to make it a little sad for us. They're likely going to want to target the higher power card, which is going to be Brawler. We have another one. So let's go ahead and Ancestral Anger our Phoenix Chick. We'll attack both. Ooh, Gaia's Might. Does that give us lethal here? We'll see what opponent does here. We're going to attack both. I have a feeling They might flash in their Wandering Emperor. If that's the case, wow, it's not the case. Let's go ahead and Seismic Wave their face. This puts them in an uncomfortable position where they are taking lethal. They have to make a play here. Make disappear. Really? Huh. Not what I was expecting from opponent. But we can go ahead and Gaia's Might and make them pay anyways. So that gets them down to 3 life. No board presence. However, it is possible for them to, there we go, play some removal. So Brawler gets taken up by Ossification. Lay down arms on the Phoenix chick. We'll gain some life off that. Opponent gets 1 more token, but we draw into our Spellspear. Now, I think it would behoove us to get as much board presence down as possible here, because all it's going to take is a flipped Kenra Spellspear and 1 instant or sorcery, and we should be able to close this game out. But it all depends on what opponent's play is this turn. Opponent giving it a very deep think. It seems like we may have lost opponent. We'll give them all the time they need. And they're back. Would not be surprised to see a Sunfall here. But it could also be that opponent is stuck on 4 mana. They pass the turn. We'll go ahead and flip. See if opponent can do anything about that. Seems like maybe opponent is having some gamesmanship issues here. They are definitely there, but yep, Wandering Emperor. That'll be on the Neshoba Brawler. And we'll see what they do here. They're probably feeling a little bit more likely to engage with us now that they are back ahead. They burn a Wandering Emperor. Likely means they have another one. They might attack here. No? Okay. Lunar Frenzy is pretty much just what we would like to see. So this is likely going to be, if they have what they need, which is pretty much just another Wandering Emperor, this is going to be where they'll play that. We have the ability to give our creature +5 and first strike. We have to take it. There's no more waiting around when you're only playing with commons and uncommons. We'll go ahead and attack. We'll wait for the blockers, see what they have to do. Yep, it's fine. We'll give it +5. Get double prowess, up to 5, +5. That should be more than enough, unless they have some sort of removal or counterspell, which it looks like they do. But this just goes to show you how dangerous this card can be. If you get that Kenra Spellspear flipped, there is very, very little they can do. Looks like they did have the Wandering Emperor. They can't go after this. That's 6 damage plus 4 off top, and that means we have taken the cake. GG's Sasa. It is a very tasty cake. Okay, up against Ultrix, and we are on the play. This time, we have multiple red sources. We have 2 of our seismic waves and 2 Spellspears. This is a very good place for us to be in. I think because we have an untapped mana source, and we have the opportunity to fetch our 3rd basic land type, I think we'll go Riveteer's Outlook into a turn 2 Spellspear. And we'll see how that positions us. Go ahead and grab a green mana. Could it be? Could it be a mono red deck? So we have the card. We have 3 of the card that we needed last time on top of a Spellspear. So we'll go ahead and play Spellspear. That'll probably eat a burn spell. We can play a second one next turn alongside our tap land, and that positions us really, really well for turn 4. Now we're going to want to be economical with our seismic waves. We're going to want to make them play out as many creatures as they feel they can. So, Sacred Peaks into a Spellspear. Now they might take this out one more time, in which case we will quickly pass the turn when it comes to us to make them think we don't have any plays available. That might encourage them to play out a few more of their creatures. Kumano. Yep. No blocks from us. Guys might. So I think we'll hold back on this turn. We'll see what happens on their end. Now Spellspear will have prowess, so it might be able to eat. Ooh, Felden. Okay, Felden is also a very good target. As of now, it does look like they're going to have... Ooh. I think we have to eat this. This is probably the worst case scenario for us. They made a very good read on us having another spell. That is more helpful. So let's go ahead and transform the Spellspear. We'll take 2 damage. We'll hold up Gaia's Might. And we'll see what happens here. Ooh. And that's going to be a good game from us. So let's take a second and look at what is being played against us. We have a lot of, all of a sudden, 2 toughness creatures. Kumano helps put an additional counter on things. And we have Bloodthirsty Adversary. So we need to, maybe instead of Seismic Wave, look at something that deals 2 damage across the board. Maybe 2 non-vampire creatures. We know there's a very good 3 mana instant spell in that regard. And that would really help us clear our opponent's board in a circumstance like this. So we'll go ahead, we'll show our hand, prowess up, and then we'll accept our loss. But this is a very good case study in what kind of lessons can be learned. GG's, Ultrix. Okay, so we now have quite a bit of good feedback as to what is working and what isn't working. We know that Shadow Prophecy is probably a little too slow. We know that we're not likely to get an untapped black source on 1. Okiba can go. That means that we can free up our mana base a little bit. So now we're leaning more into a kind of red-green aggro domain build. We also know that Seismic Wave isn't quite going to do the job against the mono-white and mono-red decks that we're facing. So we will look up the alternative, which is going to be Vampire's Vengeance. Now, this is going to hit our own creatures, but most of our creatures are going to have higher toughness. So this looks like a very good alternative and something that's going to hit more of our opponent's creatures than our own. If we can find a way to do better than a 1-for-1 removal spell, we are going to be pulling ahead in some of these matches. So this is an excellent alternative. We'll see if we need 4 of them, depending on how many of these aggro decks, the red and the white, that we find ourselves facing. But for now, I think 3 is a pretty good number. Now, Outrider didn't pop up in any of those games. It was maybe a little too late. So I think what we might want is either a little bit more gas or a little bit more pump. So let's take those out. Lunar Frenzy I actually very much like. I think this is a great 1 mana pump for any sort of prowess deck. And now that we're kind of leaning back into this mono red-y feel, let's go ahead and take a look at what other prowess options we have. Obviously, a Spellspear is going to be a very good alternative. And actually, I'm seeing some mythics and rares, and we do not want those. So we have a Spellspear, which is a very good turn 1 play. It also has that 2 toughness, which if we cast a spell goes up to 3 for us, which means it doesn't get hit by a Vampire's Vengeance. We also have Dwarven Forge Chanter, which has ward and prowess. Now, I am a big fan of ward in this meta. It's only a life ward, which is a little bit less effective, but given that we are really trying to be an aggro deck, I think this could have some promise. So let's go ahead and try a couple of these. We'll add 2 Dwarven Forge Chanters, and then I think what we need is a little bit more gas on top of fixing our mana base a little bit. So let's look for something that deals damage and draws. I have something like Volcanic Spite in mind, something to get rid of those Feldons, something to get rid of the Graveyard Trespassers, something to get rid of some of those tribal +1/+1 givers. So let's go ahead and add a couple Volcanic Spites. And then it might behoove us to think about some auras. So what can help get us past some of these stalled boards and give us a little bit more advantage on top? I really like Audacity. Audacity is being played in almost all of the enchantment, the Selesnya enchantment decks. It gives +2/+0 to your creatures. It gives them trample, which could be good, especially given that our Forge Chanter does not have trample. And it also allows us to replenish our hand if one of our creatures does die. I like that it's low to the ground. I like that it's only 1 mana, so I think we give this a go. So we've fixed up our mana, we've made our deck a little lower to the ground, we've given it a better opportunity to 2 or 3 for 1 our opponents. Let's see if we can go and beat one of those mono red decks. Now this looks better, doesn't it? We have a turn 1 Phoenix Chick into a turn 2 Forge Chanter or Spellspear, and we have a pump spell. We'll go ahead and keep this. And especially being on the draw, this is a very good hand. That means that we can maintain our aggro approach even though we're not going first. Volcanic Spite, another very good draw here. Sunset Revelry gets our opponent everything they could ever want. We will go ahead. Ooh, we have all of our 2 mana red creatures. So if opponent is playing Sunset Revelry, it looks like they are on Esper. Maybe in Esper tokens, maybe in Esper control, but definitely not Esper legends. I would assume evasion is going to be very helpful here. And ward, maybe not as helpful because of sacrifice effects. So, let's go ahead and put down our best creature and see what happens. If it survives into the next turn, I think we have a very good chance of keeping it around. Opponent already hovering on it, though. Founding the third path. Looks like they're going to cast a 1 or 2 mana spell from their hand. Siphon Insight. So they're stealing our cards. Now, a lot of people are very touchy when it comes to tabletop gameplay about card touching. But the people that play Siphon Insight, they don't really seem to care, do they? Okay, so we now are up to 3 different kinds of mana. We have our Spellspear at the ready. We know that removal is probably coming. They don't have a second white source, and they haven't held up any single black removal. So I think we're safe for this turn. And I think Lunar Frenzy is probably going to be the play here. Ooh, so they are holding up something. So let's go ahead and attack with both. This might pull a block. Just 1, maybe 2. Okay. We'll go ahead, we'll burn our Lunar Frenzy. Pump it up to 4 power and toughness. If opponent has additional removal, this would be an excellent time to use it. They took a Gaia's Might. Luckily, we do have First Strike, so that isn't going to be as effective for them. Okay. Target player mills 4. Is it going to be themselves or us? They are self-milling. Ooh, they milled over some really good ones. So they are playing Sunfall, and they do have double white now. They're playing Jace, and they are playing Go for the Throat. So this would be the turn for a Wandering Emperor. This would also be a good turn for them to blow us out if we tried to transform a Spellspear. This is a tough place to be in, and I think they're getting to the point now, having survived most of the early game, that we're going to be at a disadvantage no matter what we do. So I think we are going to attack with the Spellspear. If they want to use a Wandering Emperor, I think that's probably okay. We have some removal if they get a little greedy with their Wandering Emperor and just make a token. We'll see how this goes. As we thought, it is a Wandering Emperor. Ooh, they exile the Phoenix Chick instead. So, because they're doing that, I think we can go ahead, let the Spellspear hit, and then we will throw down an Electrostatic Infantry. So this gives us the opportunity to... I didn't think about the Founding the Third Path. So this is going to let them play any of their removal or their Sunfall this turn. And that's probably going to be the end of us. Opponent now has a lot of good access to building the board, to buffing creatures. They'll probably have access to some more gas. If they have another mana, which they do, they can play most of their spells. They did burn their Wandering Emperor, though. Play to Celestis. This just makes me feel like we might have a chance. I mean, we always have a chance, but this feels a little extra chancy. So we'll go ahead, we'll buff up our Electrostatic Infantry. We will drop our last creature. Play down a Sacred Peaks and attack in. And now we are very vulnerable, but we did dodge one Sunfall, which was milled. We've gotten hit a couple times by removal. And this is where we're really counting on our opponent to have one little misstep, that can help us pull ahead. They can gain life off Celestis, but it has to be at sorcery speed. We know they have Siphoning Insight. We also know we don't have a whole lot of removal in our own deck. We have a way to pump our creatures. So at this point in the game, you're always thinking about how close you are to lethal. With a flipped Spellspear, yep, makes sense. With a flipped Spellspear that goes up to 3/3 plus a double prowess, it could be at 5, 6, 7. Electrostatic Infantry gains a counter. 8, 9, 10. We're at 10 damage with a flipped Spellspear. And so opponent is probably looking for some big removals. Well, this is as good as we can do here. We'll go ahead and flip our Spellspear. Get him to a 3/3. We'll play Lunar Frenzy for 2. Doesn't matter which one we put it on. Spellspear will have double prowess. Electrostatic Infantry will get a 1/1. I think this should put them to 4. Yep. So that is not a bad turn for us. We have 2 creatures that are above our own removal from Siphon Insight. We have 2 creatures that, with pretty much any spell we draw off the top, are presenting lethal on their own. They are both tapped, and opponent has so much removal at their disposal. I'm not feeling great about our chances, but you never know. Well, now you do know. That's probably going to be a good game from our opponent. They have card advantage, they have life gain, they have blockers, and we have a Vampire's Vengeance. So we can create a blood token. We'll give it one more try. Looks like they are going to transform that. Ooh, we didn't hold priority the way that we wanted. Opponent is going to gain another life. So they're up to 6. We are only drawing 1 card at a time, which means we've run out of gas. And this is the point where you really start thinking about how this deck has evolved. We started off as kind of this 5-color domain. We want big creatures. That wasn't fast enough for the meta, so we added more removal, more 2-for-1s. And we've really played this deck towards the aggro side. We want to be able to beat mid-range half the time. We want to be able to try to beat control most of the time. And we want to have a slightly advantageous matchup against other aggro decks. This might not be quite the matchup for us. And because we have especially tooled some cards like Vampire's Vengeance, that's going to come at the cost of card draw or more gas for when we get into this kind of matchup. So very close, probably not going to cross the finish line here. We'll give it one more turn before giving our opponent the win. Opponent just passing. Gaining some more life, getting some more card draw, some more filtering. Now there's not anything we can pull off the top here. That'll probably be a good game from us. We'll see if we draw a creature. We'll see if that creature sticks around. And in the event neither of those happen, we'll move along. Good game, Saya. We'll let you have this one and get on to whatever else you'd like to do with your life. Fire this deck for now. And where does that leave us? That leaves us with... So let's go ahead and take a look at these decks one more time. First off, we tried the Poor Mana's Domain deck. This has some potential still. I always love a good domain deck. I really love Kenra's Spellspear. I really like Nishoba Brawler. I think there are some tooling and some tweaking that can be done, but as of now, I don't quite think this has the ability to withstand the meta assault at this time. We then tried our Poor Mana's Vampire deck. This, unfortunately, just didn't quite have it. Markov Baron, very easy to remove. The kind of low-level creatures that we build up to, not a huge threat, any of them on their own. Blood Tithe Harvester, always a good card, that's why it sees so much play. Vampire Socialite has its moments, but on its own isn't quite going to get it done. We also played our Poor Mana's Humans. Now this list, again, has those moments where you think, yeah, this could go the distance, until it doesn't. It's really easy if you don't have the proper 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana rollout. It's very easy to have a board wiped, have 1 or 2 key pieces taken off, have the opponent board stall, and then you can't really do anything about it. It really takes good momentum and uninterrupted momentum to work. So that wasn't going to cut it for us. So what are we going to turn to? Our good old Poor Man's Boros. This list is very mono-red. It has the Commoners, it has the Spellspears, it has the Phoenix Chicks. It has a little bit of Go Face removal and Lightning Strike and Play with Fire. It also has some tricks like Antagonize and Blazing Crescendo. It has top end like Sunrise Cavalier, Stoke the Flames, and it has a couple other surprises like Seismic Wave. This is really well positioned in the meta. I think there might be some better options that may develop as mono red seeks bigger bodies at 2 or 3 toughness, but as of now, this has the gas to go face fast enough. It has the ability to go over maybe the token decks. This is really well positioned and probably one of the better uncommon and common options. And next week, we will resume our climb with our good old trusty Boros deck and see if we can go from MudGrub to Mythic using commons and uncommons. I look forward to it. Please like and subscribe if you like the content, and I'll see you next time.